So where were we before we went off on that little tangent? We were talking about something. Um, Structural inequality. Da, 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 da.
I don't know. I think. Go ahead.
So let's tie all this. Let's tie all this back to. Let's connect this back to automation, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, well, it's all part of the same process. I think. Knowledge is iterative, um, and so is and really automation is really just a kind of knowledge. It's knowledge of how to arrange things that we find in the natural world to work for our ends. Um, and I think if we're really gonna get that process kicked up to the next level, then we need to have a, a broader consciousness of what we are. We're bigger than individuals, and this is the really terrible lie that's been promulgated for millennia that I think is really about to fall, is that we really are all connected, um, in a very real sense. I don't mean that metaphorically. I In order for me to exist, you have to exist. In order for you to exist, somebody else has to exist. That's just how the world works, and I think the world is really waking up to that. And I think that's the really beautiful takeaway from everything we're seeing around the world.
Yeah. Well, and that's. I mean, I actually agree with that. I mean, and there's a number, while it may seem to be some kind of like sort of we may have like a knee jerk like oh that's like 1960s hippie bullshit kind of knee jerk reaction against that kind of idea. I mean, I think there's actually a lot of ways we can look at it where it's just factually the case.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, individual human beings do not, if you're raised in isolation, do not develop language, for example, which many of us think of as one of the primary characteristics of our species.
Right.
We just do it. So if there was only one human baby in the world and no other people, and that baby grew up, no language. Well, interesting. Now, and there's other things like that as well. I mean, like no individual person developed money or the financial system or the color purple paint that's on your wall. And there's a curious TED talk to this effect, like who knows how to build a mouse?
Right.
Is the question. And the answer is actually nobody does. Like the person who knows how to design it doesn't know how to create like the plastics to do it. And the person who doesn't make the plastics doesn't know how to actually get the the materials with which to do so, and so on down the process. So even something as simple that we use every day, although increasingly less so as mice, like we actually don't know how to make those in a certain way. And so that connectedness is deep and profound, and broader than we're apt to think of it. And again, like you can also look at history and say, oh well, this is curious. Like, why are all these similar scientific discoveries, for example, happening at around the same time? And you can come up with some theories about that amount to the fact of like not a zeitgeist in a metaphysical sense, but a zeitgeist in the sense of this information traveling around, and that's what it does. And if that's true, then this is the most exciting time in history really to be alive, because this is exponentially more true than it has ever been. And that's something I think that if I were to have like a takeaway something here, like the thing that I think is easy not to realize is that in objective, measurable terms, this is the most interesting time to be alive, simply because there's more information than there's ever. But that's not it. That's not the entirety of the thing. It's actually, if the 21st century is like almost 12 years old, and in the first, if we decide that we're going to measure history in terms of human years lived, that is to say, like individual human like consciousness and interiorities that live a year, and that's how we measure how much time has passed in a certain way, then we can look at the 17th century, this great period in world history, and so much that foundations for so much of what we now take for granted were formed. And there's already been as many human years lived in the first 10 years of the 21st century as there were in the entirety of the 17th century, all around the world. And that's not it, because it's not just that there's more people, but those people can communicate more effectively than ever before. So, I think that if you actually look at the facts, the population growth, economic growth, technological and automotive growth, emergent properties of networks, and all this kind of stuff. To think that world society and human society and our basic assumptions aren't going to fundamentally change is actually is a goofy.
It's the wild-eyed liberal position. Yeah, it's a
wild-eyed liberal
less
position.
commensurate
It's
with
like,
experience.
It's zany to think that society isn't going to fundamentally change. Because how could it be the same? There's exponentially more people, and they can all talk to each other, and we have exponentially more technology, and also most of the things which most people have spent most of their time throughout most of history doing, that is subsisting, is in a historical flash of an eye disappearing, gone. The necessity for this kind of base subsistence and menial jobs that keep people in an ignorant position. Suddenly, everyone has the ability, with one of these and some time and some luck, to become educated. If the big thing that changed for Malcolm X was being stuck in prison with a plethora of time and an encyclopedia, then how much more true is it of us? And even the jobless, say, in Occupy Wall Street and all that kind of stuff, that we have this. We have the thing that we're talking about right
now. I agree.
And that's, to tie it back into automation, that's just, automation isn't just the robots that take people's jobs and help us do our jobs better, but it's also the software and technology and hardware and firmware that's allowing us to talk right now.
Yeah.
Because another thing that automation is letting us do is communicate better than we ever have. And it's more important that we do because there's more of us, and we'll all kill each other if we don't. So,
And that's just the fact. I don't know if you heard about this this virus that recently hit the United States drone fleet. But yeah, so the drones that we send overseas to just fly around and randomly kill people. Not randomly.
Yeah, like American citizens. Yeah, just why not?
But yeah, and increasingly these systems are getting automated as well. So I don't know if this is happening yet or if they've just been talking about it, but it's definitely possible to have the decision on whether or not to fire to be made by the machine, by software.
It's already happened. Yeah, there's this excellent book called Wired for War that discusses this in depth. And yeah, it's already happening because military strategists face this problem of if my drone gets cut off, there's always this question of the human element. And where does the human question, where does the human element stop? And everyone says, we've got to keep the human element because people are responsible to make decisions like that. But in the breach, it always comes down to, if my drone ship or a robot is cut off from the base, does it just derp its way back to the base, or does it do something? And people, again, choosing expediency over anything else, choose to actually have the drone thing equipped with ways to decide to kill things.
Yeah.
Like leaving your Amazon, password logged in. Like how this used to be a big privacy concern, and now no one thinks about it. It's of course the drones need to be able to shoot things on their own. So yeah, and that's a whole other topic of discussion. And that whole thing of what's going to happen as the military becomes more automated, and who actually has at the point where robots are making decisions to kill things, who actually has the monopoly of force? In the social contract scenario,